Hey guys, HillBillyDan back in the shop again. Let's synchronize the carburetors on this bike. So let's just start at the beginning. What is carburetor synchronization and why do we need to do it? It's actually recommended routine maintenance on most bikes that have more than one carburetor. Now, all of my bikes are carburetor equipped. They come along before electronic fuel injection was a thing. They're older bikes. And most of these older bikes, not all of them, but most of them that are larger displacement are going to have more than one cylinder. Now, one thing that's pretty common with these older bikes like this that are carburetor equipped that have multiple cylinders is this. A lot of the time, not every time, but a lot of the time, each cylinder is going to be equipped with its own carburetor. Now, that's a wonderful thing, but it does present a problem, and I'm going to try to explain it the way I've got it pictured in my own hillbilly head. Now, Rhonda here has 4 cylinders, and each cylinder is equipped with its own carburetor. That means Rhonda here has 4 carburetors. Now, the way I kind of look at the situation is like this. This right here is supposed to be one engine, but because we have 4 cylinders, each one equipped with its own carburetor, it's almost like we have 4 separate engines coupled by a common crankshaft. But we don't want 4 separate engines. We're trying to create one engine. We want all 4 cylinders on this motorcycle doing the same thing at the same time. So what we do when we synchronize the carburetors is this. Each one of these carburetors has its own throttle valve, and when we synchronize the carburetors, what we're actually synchronizing is the throttle valves in these carburetors. We want to make sure that each carburetor is delivering the same amount of mixture to its corresponding cylinder as the other carburetors are delivering to their corresponding cylinders. So how do we know if each carburetor on the engine is delivering the same amount of mixture to their corresponding cylinders? That's where this comes in. This is a digital vacuum gauge. And it's pretty cool because it's got a magnet you can stick right on the tank if you're able to leave your tank on while you're doing this. Some bikes you got to take it off, but that's pretty handy on a bike like this. Each cylinder on this bike has a little screw here that opens a port between the throttle valve and the cylinder head. Here's the screw for this cylinder. Here's the screw for this cylinder. There's screws on the other side for the other 2 cylinders. Now, I've already got the screw out of this port right here, and what that's going to enable us to do is hook this to our vacuum gauge and measure how much vacuum the engine is creating between the throttle valve and the carburetor and the cylinder head. We're going to hook all 4 cylinders up like that, each to its own port on our vacuum gauge here, and that'll enable us to see how much vacuum is being created on each cylinder individually. Now, the magic of all this is how far open or how far closed the throttle valve is on a carburetor affects how much vacuum is created between the carburetor itself and the cylinder head. That means if we can somehow get the same amount of vacuum on all 4 cylinders on this engine, the throttle valves are probably all going to be sitting in the same position on all 4 carburetors, and they'll all be synchronized with each other. So let's hook it up. Okay, I've got all my vacuum hoses hooked up. Run up here to my vacuum meter, and I've got channel 1 on the vacuum meter hooked to my base carburetor. Now, the base carburetor is the carburetor that's hooked directly to the throttle. The other 3 carburetors take their motion from the base carburetor, which means we're actually going to be adjusting the other 3 carburetors to the base carburetor. Now, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on how to actually adjust the carburetors. I am going to say what we're trying to do on this bike is get the vacuum on all 4 cylinders the same at idle speed. Now, there's screws under here that enable us to do that. And what those screws do, and I can't get them on camera because it's so cramped up in here, but what those screws do is give us the ability to adjust each carburetor by itself. And what we're actually adjusting are the throttle valve positions. Like I say, different bikes have different ways of doing it. What you need to do is get a service manual for your bike if you're going to attempt this and follow the instructions to a T. So I'm going to open up the door here and get ready to crank up the bike and set the idle speed. All right, I got my main shop door open, so maybe I won't smother. And I'm going to turn on the vacuum meter and let it calibrate itself. All right, let's crank it up. I'm going to let it warm up enough to idle consistently. Okay, this right here is my base carburetor, 181, and there's the rest of my cylinders. So we got a little bit of work to do. Right here, this is our engine speed in RPM. This thing's, I think, supposed to idle around 1,000 RPM, so I'm going to try to keep it around that. Let's adjust. Okay, I've got these two cylinders pretty close here, but it dropped my idle speed, so I need to readjust that now. Okay, I'm back up around 1,000 RPM. I can move on to my other two cylinders. Okay, now I've adjusted that cylinder there, and I've got it pretty close to the other two, but it made my engine idle up, so now I've got to idle it back down where I want it. Okay, I've got my idle speed reset. I've got my first three cylinders pretty well in sync with each other, but I've got one cylinder to go. Now this is a 6-channel tool, so there's 6 different readouts here, but we're not using these two, so they're not really hooked to anything. Okay, I'd say that's pretty close. Now, one thing I do want to mention is it's good to do this in between every adjustment, just to make sure you got all the slack out of everything and everything's kind of settled because you have moved it. And one thing that I do like to do before I button everything up is shut the engine off and give the throttle a couple of hits like that, let it slam shut, and then fire it back up again and see what kind of reading I'm getting on my vacuum gauges. Okay, I've shut the engine off and let the throttle slam shut a few times, and it still looks like it's pretty close, so I think we're done. Now we just got to take our hoses off, take our adapters out, and put our screws back in there to plug off our ports, and we're good to go. All right, got all my vacuum ports plugged off. Let's crank it up and see what she sounds like now. Now, I don't know if you guys can tell or not, but it idles a lot better than it did. I like it. Now, if this is something that you're going to want to attempt yourself, be sure to get a service manual, follow the instructions to a T. And if you want one of these tools here, it's a pretty cool tool. The tool is called the DigiSync. And when you get one, you scan a QR code here and get the owner's manual. Everything's online. I'm pretty happy with this tool. Sure beats having to calibrate the old gauges I had every time. So check it out, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have anything to add, anything to correct that I've said, any kind of advice, please leave it in the comments. I'm here to learn just like everyone else. I don't know everything. You'll be helping us all out by doing that, and I welcome that kind of thing. Remember, God loves you. I appreciate you. Catch you guys next time.